everyone. On July 20th, 1969, human beings landed and walked on the moon for the first time. Neil Armstrong had the incredible honor of being the first person to walk on the moon, and Buzz Aldrin had the honor of becoming the second person. As part of their Apollo 11 mission, they planted a flag of the United States of America into the moon's surface. For some people, the flag gesture was an obvious one, but others have had different opinions about it. We're going to take a look at how the decision was made, what the alternative suggestions were, and we're going to ask and answer the question of whether it was the right decision to plant the U.S. flag on the moon. In 1967, 2 years before the first manned moon landing, a treaty known as the Outer Space Treaty was signed by the majority of the world's nations, including the United States and the Soviet Union, which at the time was in competition with America as part of what was known as the space race. One of the main points of the treaty is that no nation may claim sovereignty of outer space or any celestial body. With Apollo 11 fast approaching, the question arose of what commemorations, if any, should be left on the moon. A number of people from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration thought it would be appropriate to place the flag of the United Nations on the moon, a gesture of international solidarity. Others disagreed with this suggestion. In fact, the leading people at NASA were overwhelmingly in favor of placing the U.S. flag on the moon. Some suggested placing both the U.S. flag and the UN flag on the moon, and another suggestion was to plant miniature flags of all the nations of the world on the moon. A committee was set up to deal with the issue. The committee recommended planting the U.S. flag on the moon and no other flag. They also recommended placing a plaque on the moon to commemorate the Apollo 11 mission. And regarding the flags of other countries, they recommended carrying the miniature flags to the moon, but then returning the flags back to Earth. All of the committee's recommendations were carried out. The only flag planted on the moon was the U.S. flag. The plaque was also placed on the moon and left there. And they also carried the miniature flags of all other nations that existed at the time. When they returned to Earth, these flags were given to each of the nations they represented. As millions across the world tuned in to watch the landing take place on television, they witnessed one of the most iconic images of the 20th century, the flag of the United States planted on the moon. So what about the Outer Space Treaty and the idea that no country should make any territorial claims to celestial bodies? Later, in 1969, the U.S. government sought to clarify the issue. In November of that year, the U.S. Congress passed a bill, which was signed into law by President Richard Nixon. The bill stated that the flag of the United States and no other flag shall be implanted or otherwise placed on the surface of the moon or on the surface of any planet by members of the crew of any spacecraft, as part of any mission, the funds for which are provided entirely by the government of the United States. This act is intended as a symbolic gesture of national pride in achievement and is not to be construed as a declaration of national appropriation by claim of sovereignty. After this, 5 more Apollo missions succeeded in landing American astronauts on the moon. All of them planted an American flag on the moon's surface, as well as leaving a plaque, just like what happened on the Apollo 11 mission. And returning to the Apollo 11 mission, another symbolic item was on board. A small disc made of silicon was taken to the moon, which contained goodwill messages from the leaders of 73 countries across the world. The disc was carried by Buzz Aldrin in his suit shoulder pocket. Apparently, Aldrin forgot about the disc and was climbing back up the ladder of the Eagle lunar module at the end of their lunar walk when Neil Armstrong reminded him about it. Then Aldrin took the disc out and dropped it onto the moon's surface to be left behind. So did NASA and America make the right decision with the flag? In our opinion, the answer is a resounding yes. The Apollo 11 mission was paid for by the American people, and the U.S. flag is without doubt the most recognizable symbol of America and its people. We completely support the bill passed by Congress that highlights this point. Those that paid for the mission should get the recognition they deserve. And planting the flag on the moon does not mean America makes any sort of claim over it. As the bill points out, it's a symbolic gesture of achievement. Explorers have planted flags on various parts of the planet, such as the North and South Poles and at the peak of Mount Everest and other great mountains. While the moon landing was a huge achievement for all of humanity, we think the UN flag would have been completely inappropriate. The mission was carried out by just one member nation of the UN using tax money from the people of that one country. However, we do have to point out that there were a few examples of international contributions towards the Apollo mission, and these were funded by public money from other nations. but these contributions were tiny compared to the overall contribution by the American taxpayer. And as we've already mentioned, NASA did make international symbolic gestures with the miniature flags being taken to the moon and presented to their respective nations after they were brought back to Earth. And we also had the Apollo 11 goodwill messages from nations across the world, which were etched onto the silicon disk and left on the moon. So taking all of this into account, we think NASA got everything right. The American people deserved the primary recognition for the moon landings and achieved this by the planting of the American flag on the moon for each of the manned moon missions. And NASA also reached out to the rest of the world with the miniature flags and the goodwill messages. We think these were great gestures of international solidarity and human unity. But what do you guys think? Do you think NASA made the right decisions regarding the flag and the other symbolism? We plan to make a follow-up video on this subject in the near future where we go into some technical details on the flags used for the missions. We'll be looking into who manufactured them, what modifications had to be made, and how they were transported. And we'll be finding out what has happened to the flags over the last 50 plus years as they've endured the harsh lunar climate. So if you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe to the channel for this and other flag-related videos in the future. And of course, we already have tons of content on the channel, so be sure to check it out. Thank you for watching, and until next time, bye for now.